Hi, welcome to the training. David Marshall here, and of course, we're talking about strategic marketing. And today, we're talking about headlines. Why? Well, because 70% of the success of your advert, of your squeeze page, of your sales page, of your Google advert are all dependent on your ability to create great headlines. It's not about traffic. Anyone who's had any training with me before, I bang about this all the time. You can have all the traffic in the world. If you can't convert it, you're absolutely dead in the water. And the very first thing anyone will see on your webpage is the headline. So you must pay masses of attention to your headlines. Absolutely key and absolutely critical. So what are they and what do they do? That's what you've got to understand. And of course, we can only touch the surface today, but let's get into it. What are they? Well, they're state breakers. Now, what I mean by that, and what you may or may not know about me, is that I trained as a master hypnotherapist and a master NLP practitioner because I wanted to understand how I think, how I can help other people think better. And it's helped me work out all these problems and issues around headlines because everybody is in a state. They're in a hypnotic state. They're surfing online. You and I do it all the time. And they're just really focused into what they're doing. It's called a state of consciousness, for want of a better phrase. So what you've got to do is you've got to break their state. You've got to break the hypnotic state that the prospect is in and get them to focus on what you're doing. And that's the job of the headline. It's an attention grabber. It gets attention. Now, that may seem obvious, but actually to do that is quite challenging because you've got to make sure that you know exactly what the prospect is thinking. You've got to have done enough market research to understand that when they actually look to the side, if they're looking at an advert or if they're looking at your web page, they are grabbed. Their attention emotionally, mentally is grabbed to actually pull them down the page and to read more. So they are state breakers and attention grabbers. And if you're not converting, then you need to look at your headline straight away. So that's what they are. Now, what do? Well, they bridge the gap. As well as getting attention, they bridge the gap between your prospect's conflict, because everybody's got a conflict, and that's why they're searching online, and everyone's got a problem, and your service. You've got to bridge the gap between the two. Now, that's very, very difficult to do. So it's just the start of the process, but that initial headline has to be able to bridge the gap in some fashion between where they are, so what's going on in their head, and what's going on in your head in terms of what you want them to do. You want them to buy something, and the headline is the first step in them doing that process. So therefore, it's got to bridge the gap between where they are and where you are, what you want. So it bridges the gap between your prospect's conflict and theirs and your service. Number two, it gets the prospect to read the next line. That's really all its job is. It's get attention, bridge the gap between your prospect, and then get them to read the next line, because you're probably going to have another title under the main headline. So the job of that next headline number two, is to get them to read the next paragraph. The next paragraph, you're just working your way down. And that's the way to think about it. A headline is the first thing to grab attention, to bridge the gap, and only to get them to read the next line. So it's got to be really, really interesting. So there are some general rules I want to give you today, that if a prospect knows about you, so they know your name, but not your service, start your headline with your name. Okay, David Marshall recommends, David Marshall presents. If they don't know your name, but they know that they've got an issue, then start with the issue. Want to make more money online, struggling to make income, whatever it would be. Then you're going to put the rest of it in there. And the curiosity and benefit headline are the best ones. So a bit of curiosity, how a strange meeting allowed me to make $27,000 in a day. Something like that. Something along those kind of lines. Curiosity is a very powerful force, and also the benefit as well. So you need to refocus back onto your headlines at some point, maybe once a month. Just create something where you're going to go back and you're going to go and test and have a look at them. So your job as the marketer is to know what your prospects are actually thinking when they land on the page, or when they're looking at Google and you've got an advert on the right, or when they land on your page, what are they thinking? And that takes market research. As I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much we could talk about, but know what they're thinking as best you can. Create the headline that grabs their attention. Okay, so it's got to be something that they're thinking about, or you've got to meet the prospect in their own mind. So you've got to know what's going on in their own mind, and you've got to create the headline that grabs their attention, curiosity, and a benefit. and then that bridges the gap between them and the sale and encourages them to scroll down. So that's it. That's the insights for today. Make sure that you go and revisit your headlines. If your page isn't converting, then make sure you go and revisit your headlines, and also try different headlines. When you're testing, when you're testing, you should be testing your headline first. That's the first thing you should be doing, testing 2 or 3 headlines to see which one actually gets them to stay on the page longer and to convert better, and that will make a huge difference to your business. Okay, have a great day. David Marshall signing out. See you with more strategic tips very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.